Life is complex. It's unpredictable. And at times it feels like you're trapped, stuck in a cycle of sameness, unable to move forward, unable to find a way out. You wake up every morning with the same thoughts, the same frustrations, the same dull ache of inertia. And the worst part, the world keeps moving while you remain stagnant. Now, why does this happen? Why do we find ourselves caught in these loops of inaction and despair? Well, it's because life is structured in hierarchies. Not just external hierarchies, but psychological ones too. You exist at a particular level of competence, a particular level of knowledge, a particular level of self-awareness. And when you reach the ceiling of that level, when you've exhausted the strategies that once worked for you, you stop progressing. That's when stagnation creeps in. That's when you feel stuck. And here's the dangerous part: stagnation invites chaos. If you're not progressing, you're regressing. There's no standing still in life. The moment you stop climbing, entropy takes over. You become bitter. You start resenting the world, blaming external forces for your paralysis. And in doing so, you surrender your agency. But here's the brutal truth. No one is coming to rescue you. No magical force is going to pluck you from your struggles and place you where you think you should be. You have to do it yourself, and that starts with the smallest possible action. If you're stuck, it means you lack clarity. So start by identifying where exactly are you? What's the precise nature of the problem? Is it your career, your relationships, your mental state? Get specific. Clarity is the antidote to chaos. Once you define the problem, break it down into manageable parts. What's one thing, just one, that you could do today to shift your trajectory by 1 degree? Maybe it's writing down a plan. Maybe it's reaching out to someone who can help. Maybe it's as simple as cleaning your room, because if you can't bring order to your immediate surroundings, how do you expect to bring order to your life? And be prepared to confront something terrifying yourself, because feeling stuck isn't just about external obstacles. It's about the internal resistance, the fears, the self-doubt, the deeply ingrained habits that keep you from moving forward. You must be willing to dismantle the parts of yourself that no longer serve you. That's painful. It requires honesty. It requires sacrifice. But there's no growth without suffering. The way out of stagnation isn't waiting for motivation to strike. It's action, discipline, and responsibility. Take on as much responsibility as you can bear, because responsibility gives life meaning. And meaning is what pulls you forward step by step until one day you look back and realize you're no longer stuck. You're moving. You're becoming. And that's what life is about. Feeling stuck in life is not just an emotional state, but a reflection of a deeper psychological and cognitive limitation. People function within structured levels of competence, experience, and understanding. At each level, they rely on specific skills, thought patterns, and behaviors that have previously led to success. However, as life progresses, these once effective strategies may become outdated or insufficient in the face of new challenges. When individuals reach the ceiling of their current level, they encounter stagnation, a point where old methods stop working, but new ones have not yet been developed. This creates a frustrating sense of being unable to move forward despite effort. This phenomenon occurs because human growth is not linear but hierarchical. Just as academic learning progresses from basic concepts to more advanced ones, personal development follows a similar trajectory. A person who has mastered a particular way of thinking or acting may not realize that a more complex, nuanced approach is required for further growth. Instead of adapting, many individuals repeat the same patterns, expecting different results. This repetitive cycle reinforces the feeling of being stuck. It is not that progress is impossible. It is that new tools and strategies have not yet been identified or implemented. Another factor contributing to this sense of stagnation is the brain's preference for familiarity. The human mind is designed to seek comfort and stability. When faced with uncertainty, it often clings to known behaviors, even if they are no longer effective. This attachment to outdated methods creates resistance to change, leading to frustration and a perceived lack of options. In reality, solutions exist, but they require stepping into unfamiliar territory, which can be intimidating. Recognizing this tendency is crucial in breaking free from stagnation. Moreover, stagnation is often accompanied by a lack of clear goals. Without a specific direction, the mind struggles to channel its energy effectively. People may feel overwhelmed by the vast number of possibilities, or conversely believe they have no viable options at all. This mental paralysis prevents action, reinforcing the illusion that there is no way forward. The key to overcoming this lies in defining the problem with precision. Rather than saying, "I feel stuck," individuals must identify the specific areas where they feel restricted. Is it a career plateau? A lack of personal growth, relationship struggles? The more precisely the issue is defined, the easier it becomes to develop targeted solutions. The process of moving past stagnation begins with self-awareness and a willingness to embrace change. It requires individuals to question their current methods and acknowledge that what once worked may no longer be sufficient. This shift in perspective allows them to see stagnation not as a permanent state, but as a signal that growth is necessary. Instead of resisting change, they must actively seek new knowledge, skills, and experiences that will enable them to break through their current limitations. By doing so, they create the opportunity for progress and transformation, ensuring that they do not remain trapped at the same level indefinitely. When individuals find themselves stuck in life, the consequences of inaction are often much more severe than they realize. Human beings, by nature, cannot remain static. In a world where change is constant, stagnation inevitably leads to disorder. If you're not moving forward, you are falling behind. This concept, deeply rooted in the laws of nature and human psychology, explains why inertia is so detrimental. The psychological impact of inaction is far-reaching. When a person stops progressing, the mind begins to settle into negative patterns. Over time, this lack of movement results in feelings of frustration, anxiety, and self-doubt. People often start blaming external factors for their perceived paralysis, whether it be the economy, the environment, or other people, but this externalization of blame only exacerbates the problem. The more individuals focus on what is out of their control, the more disempowered they become. They lose sight of their own agency and ability to create change, which further entrenches them in a state of helplessness. Moreover, when one does not take deliberate action, the mind becomes more susceptible to negative thoughts. These thoughts don't just stay idle, they influence emotions, behaviors, and decisions. Over time, this results in a cascade of negative consequences, missed opportunities, reduced self-esteem, and a general feeling of helplessness. Inaction breeds frustration, which then fuels further inaction. This cycle of stagnation and negative thought patterns can quickly snowball, trapping individuals in a downward spiral. The consequences of stagnation also extend beyond the mental and emotional realm. Stagnant individuals often fail to maintain healthy physical habits such as exercise or proper self-care. When people feel stuck, they might neglect their physical well-being, either because they're overwhelmed by their internal struggles or because they feel like their efforts won't lead to any significant change. This neglect, in turn, exacerbates the problem. Physical health and mental health are intrinsically linked. When one falters, the other often follows. The body becomes sluggish and the mind grows more lethargic. Beyond the internal consequences, stagnation has external repercussions as well. People who are stuck often become less engaged in their relationships, whether it be with family, friends, or colleagues. They withdraw emotionally, unwilling or unable to contribute meaningfully to the lives of others. Over time, these social connections weaken. When individuals are not moving forward in their own lives, they are less capable of offering support, empathy, or motivation to those around them. In this way, stagnation becomes not only a personal issue, but a relational one as well. Furthermore, stagnation limits personal growth and the potential to create meaningful impact. When people are trapped in their own heads, unable to break free from a cycle of frustration, they lose sight of their capacity for greatness. They fail to see the opportunities that lie before them, as their vision becomes clouded by the weight of their own perceived limitations. The longer one stays stuck, the more difficult it becomes to break free from this mindset, as their sense of possibility becomes increasingly constricted. The world, on the other hand, continues to evolve, with new opportunities emerging for those who are willing to take action and engage with the changing landscape. Ultimately, the danger of stagnation is not just that it keeps you in one place, it's that it forces you to slowly unravel and fade away. When you're stuck, everything around you, including your sense of self, begins to wither. Progress, no matter how small, is essential for maintaining both a healthy mind and a fulfilled life. Taking even the smallest step forward, no matter how insignificant it may seem, is a form of resistance to the chaos that stagnation inevitably brings. The process of overcoming stagnation often begins with the crucial act of clarifying what exactly is causing the feeling of being stuck. It's easy to get lost in the vague, overwhelming sensation of paralysis, but the first step in breaking free from this state is to articulate the specific problem. If you find yourself stuck in life, you cannot afford to remain in a general state of confusion. You must work to identify the root cause of your discomfort. Without a clear understanding of the issue at hand, it becomes nearly impossible to create meaningful change. The act of naming the problem is both empowering and essential to breaking free from stagnation. When you feel stuck, the mind often defaults to broad, unspecific thoughts like "I'm unhappy" or "I don't know what to do." These kinds of generalizations paralyze action because they are too vague to solve. Instead, the question should be, what exactly am I dissatisfied with? Is it my job, my relationships, my sense of self-worth? The clearer you become about the nature of the problem, the easier it is to move toward a solution. This process of refinement requires introspection and honesty with yourself, but it is absolutely necessary for progress. It's like trying to fix a car. You wouldn't just say the car is broken. You would identify whether the problem lies with the engine, the tires, the transmission, or some other part. Similarly, to resolve personal stagnation, you need to pinpoint the precise source of your unease. Once the problem is clearly defined, you can begin the process of breaking it down into smaller, manageable parts. If the issue is, for example, feeling trapped in a career that no longer inspires you rather than becoming overwhelmed by the enormity of the task, such as finding an entirely new career path, you should focus on the first step. Perhaps the initial action is researching different fields, identifying transferable skills, or revisiting your passions to explore what excites you. Breaking the larger issue into bite-sized pieces makes it more approachable and less intimidating. The mind, when faced with a complex challenge, can often become paralyzed by its own overwhelming nature. But when you break that challenge down into smaller tasks, it becomes easier to take the first step. Each action, no matter how small, propels you forward. In addition to clarity, small actions help to shift your energy and mindset. Feeling stuck can drain your motivation and momentum. However, even a seemingly insignificant change can create momentum. It might be something as simple as organizing your workspace, setting a small personal goal, or beginning to establish new habits. The act of taking action, however minor, shifts your focus from what you cannot do to what you could do. This shift in focus helps break the grip of inertia. Once you begin to see progress, no matter how incremental, you reestablish a sense of agency and direction. This reinvigoration can be powerful as it restores the belief that you can make a difference in your own life. Importantly, the initial steps toward overcoming stagnation are not always glamorous or earth-shattering. Often, the most profound progress comes from simply taking action in small, deliberate ways. It's the discipline of consistent, purposeful effort that builds momentum over time. While motivation may not always be present, action is within your control. The power of starting is transformative. And as you continue to act, no matter how incrementally, you create a cycle of growth. Each small success propels you toward the next, compounding over time. Ultimately, clarity and incremental action form the foundation for breaking free from stagnation. By understanding exactly where you are, what is holding you back, and taking the smallest possible step to move forward, you can escape the grip of inertia. The key is to embrace the process, trust that progress, no matter how small, will lead to greater change, and accept that growth doesn't happen in leaps and bounds. It happens one step at a time. Personal stagnation is not solely about external circumstance or challenges. Often, it is a reflection of the internal resistance within an individual. When you feel stuck in life, there is usually an underlying psychological conflict that prevents you from moving forward. This conflict is not always easy to identify, as it is often rooted in fear, self-doubt, and ingrained habits that have become part of your identity over time. These internal barriers must be confronted if any meaningful change is to occur. Overcoming stagnation requires the willingness to confront not only the external challenges, but also the parts of yourself that are keeping you stagnant. The first major internal barrier that can contribute to stagnation is fear. Fear can take many forms: fear of failure, fear of the unknown, or even fear of success. In a world that often places immense pressure on individuals to be perfect or to meet specific milestones, fear can become a powerful force that stifles progress. This fear is not always rational. It can be deeply embedded in your subconscious, manifesting as procrastination or avoidance. The more you avoid confronting the things that scare you, the more power fear holds over you, making it even harder to move forward. Recognizing and acknowledging these fears is the first step toward overcoming them. Once you admit to yourself that fear is present and influencing your actions, you can begin to dismantle it. By exposing it for what it is, an internal obstacle that can be faced and overcome, you take away its power. Self-doubt is another significant internal barrier that contributes to stagnation. When you doubt your own abilities, your worth, or your potential, it becomes nearly impossible to take the necessary actions to move forward. The voice in your head that says, "You're not good enough or you'll never succeed," can paralyze you, making even the simplest of decisions feel insurmountable. Self-doubt often stems from past experiences, criticism from others, or societal expectations, and it can create a negative feedback loop that reinforces your feelings of inadequacy. To break free from self-doubt, you must actively challenge those negative beliefs. It requires recognizing that your thoughts are not always accurate reflections of reality, and that you are capable of more than your fears and doubts suggest. Replacing self-criticism with self-compassion, focusing on your past successes, and acknowledging your strengths can help counterbalance self-doubt and move you toward action. Additionally, ingrained habits that no longer serve you can keep you stuck in old patterns of behavior. Over time, individuals develop routines and coping mechanisms that feel comfortable but are ultimately unproductive or even harmful. These habits, whether it's procrastination, unhealthy coping strategies, or negative thinking patterns, become automatic responses to certain triggers. While these behaviors may have served a purpose in the past, they are often outdated and need to be reevaluated. Breaking free from these ingrained habits requires self-awareness and discipline. You must be willing to examine the habits that are holding you back, identify their roots, and replace them with new, more constructive behaviors. This can be a challenging process as it requires rewiring the brain and changing deeply ingrained neural pathways. But with persistence and patience, it is possible to create new habits that better align with your goals and values. Overcoming internal resistance requires self-reflection and an honest look at the parts of yourself that are hindering your growth. It involves acknowledging the fears, doubts, and habits that keep you stuck and confronting them head-on. This process is difficult and at times painful, but it is necessary for personal development. It requires courage to face the uncomfortable truths about yourself and the willingness to change. But by doing so, you regain control over your life and your future. You become empowered to move beyond the psychological barriers that have held you back, freeing yourself to create the life you truly want. One of the most effective ways to break free from stagnation is to take on personal responsibility. While it might seem easier to blame external circumstances or other people for the difficulties and limitations you face, this mindset only perpetuates the feeling of being stuck. Responsibility is empowering, not burdensome, because it reinforces your agency, the understanding that you, and only you, have the power to influence the direction of your life. When you take full responsibility for your actions, your choices, and even your emotions, you regain control of the situation. In essence, responsibility becomes a tool for transformation, allowing you to regain a sense of purpose and a clear path forward. Taking responsibility means accepting that your current circumstances, while sometimes influenced by external factors, are the result of the decisions you've made up until this point. This isn't to say that you are to blame for everything in your life, but rather that you have the power to respond to and shape the conditions you face. When you step into this mindset, you shift from a position of victimhood to one of empowerment. You stop waiting for someone else to change things for you and start taking the necessary steps yourself. Whether it's addressing your own limitations, setting clear goals, or finding ways to create more opportunity, responsibility gives you the power to make the necessary changes. Many people fall into the trap of waiting for the right moment to act or for motivation to strike. However, motivation is not something that magically appears. It's something that is cultivated through consistent action. Taking responsibility for your life means accepting that waiting for external circumstances to align is futile. Instead, you create the right moment through small, deliberate actions. By embracing responsibility, you allow yourself to move even when motivation feels distant. Taking responsibility also means accepting the discomfort that comes with change. When you take ownership of your actions, you realize that growth often involves facing challenges and discomfort. The process of moving forward is rarely easy or without setbacks, but those obstacles are part of the journey. Rather than retreating when things get difficult, taking responsibility means facing those challenges head-on and learning from them. Responsibility also brings clarity. When you recognize that you are the architect of your life, you are forced to make clear choices about what you want to achieve. The world is full of distractions, but taking responsibility means identifying what truly matters to you and dedicating your energy toward it. Without responsibility, it's easy to be swept up by external pressures and demands, losing sight of your goals in the process. Responsibility, in its truest sense, brings discipline and focus. It teaches you to prioritize your time and energy in a way that aligns with your long-term objectives. Another crucial aspect of responsibility is its connection to meaning. When you take responsibility for your life, you begin to create meaning in it. The more responsibility you take on, the more purpose you cultivate. This sense of meaning is the fuel that propels you forward when challenges arise. It provides the motivation to continue working toward your goals, even when obstacles appear insurmountable. Responsibility, in this sense, is not just about meeting external expectations or achieving success. It's about crafting a life that reflects your values and beliefs. It's about taking ownership of your own narrative and shaping it in a way that brings fulfillment. Ultimately, the key to overcoming stagnation lies in embracing responsibility. Rather than waiting for the world to change or for motivation to arrive, take charge of your circumstances. It's through responsibility that you create momentum, foster personal growth, and gain clarity about your life's direction. Taking responsibility does not mean accepting all burdens passively. It means actively engaging with your life in a way that empowers you to move forward, regardless of the external circumstances. It is this proactive approach that ultimately leads to transformation, allowing you to move past the stagnation and create the life you desire.